Almost kidnapped in Miami because of Instagram. My best friend is an influencer, not big time but with a big enough following to get free shit and has gotten 2 sponsored trips. She still works a full-time job but does the IG thing on the side mostly because of the perks. She's not big enough to live off this yet. Anyway, this was her first trip. A little boutique hotel from Miami contacted her via IG and DMs and offered her an all-expenses-paid trip to Miami for Memorial Weekend 2018 in exchange for her to be in the hotel and take pics and do a couple of stories. She was told she could bring a female friend with her if she wanted to and everything would be covered for. This was her first time doing this, so at the time she wasn't really sure of how it worked. They sent her a bogus contract for her to sign and it said she'd be responsible for paying for her plane ticket to Miami and that she'd be reimbursed for it later. This was to prevent a no-show, meaning the influencer gets the ticket purchased by the hotel and influencer never shows up. It seemed reasonable. She invited me, gay dude, instead of a female friend because she was nervous about the whole thing. We figured it wouldn't be a big deal and worst case scenario they don't wanna pay for my plane ticket, she'd just cover it for me and that's it. We were supposed to be picked up by the hotel at the airport, so the day comes and we arrived to Miami. There's a guy holding a sign with her last name and the paper has the hotel logo. We are greeted and we are escorted to a black SUV. Here is where it gets weird. As soon as we are gonna get in the car, the driver is visibly upset. We thought he was talking to the guy who walked us over, but he was talking to my friend. He had a very thick accent and was wearing dark shades. He was telling my friend that she was not allowed to bring her boyfriend, me, and that she said it was 2 girls, 2 girls. Hotel told me 2 girls. Number 1 girl, 1 guy, 2 girls. He was demanding to see where the other girl was. We were speechless and confused. The guy who walked us to the car looked annoyed, got in the passenger seat and started to fight with the driver in Portuguese. It wasn't Spanish. Then he turns to us and asks where the other girl is at. My friend tells them, very upset by now, that there is no other girl, that she is at insert name and that I'm just a friend coming with her on the trip. The big guy in the passenger seats gets out, tosses our luggage out of the car and says something like, "This is some fucking bullshit," gets in the car and they take off. That was it. We were in shock. Utter and complete shock. My friend immediately emails Melissa, the PR person we had been in contact through email with, to tell her what happened. No response. We decide to take a cab and show up to the hotel. When we show up is when everything made sense. The hotel had been rebranded and had a completely different name, owner and staff. We show them the IG and is indeed the IG of the hotel it used to be, but not the new one. They never contacted us, they never did anything. Whoever was in charge of the old IG account for the old hotel did, or whoever got a hold of it did. Mind you, this was a somewhat big hotel account with 10k followers. It was real, but upon further inspection we realized the pics were really old and so were the posts. My friend felt like an idiot and would not stop crying. We called the police, met up with a detective. Nothing ever came out of it. They investigated who was running the account before or who had access to it. None of the people who used to run that account had anything to do with it. Nothing ever came out of this. It's upsetting and scary to know that whoever wanted to abduct my friend or any other girls by using this old hotel Instagram knows who my friend is. That IG has since been deleted and we never heard anything from anyone ever again, but to think my friend would have been kidnapped had she gone with another girl instead of me sends chills down my spine. Be careful and creepy hotel in South Beach, LNM.
Dude, this was fucking close. Thank goodness she brought you along.
Old neighbor turned out to be a total creep. This is my first time posting on Reddit and I'm not the best writer, but this subreddit reminded me of something that happened a while ago. Please excuse if this story jumps around a bit because it's honestly confusing for me still and I'm the one it happened to. About 2 years ago when I was 17 I received a Facebook message from someone named Dan who I didn't recognize. I had mutual friends with him and he looked to be around the same age as me, so I wasn't alarmed. What follows is the messages. Dan, hello. Have you been? Haven't seen you in a few years. Me, hi, not trying to be rude but do we know each other? Dan, yeah, you really don't know me? I didn't respond. Dan, wow, real nice way to treat a family friend. Me, sorry I just don't recognize you. Dan then sent a picture of me and him together from when we were little. And I mean really little, like I looked maybe 2 to 3 and he looked 5 to 6. Me, oh wow. Did our parents used to be friends or something? Dan, I was your neighbor. You really don't recognize me. Come on, I didn't move that long ago. He had in fact moved a long time ago. At least 12 years ago. So I honestly feel like it's not that uncommon for me to not recognize someone who I hadn't seen or talked about since I was like 4. Anyways, the conversation continued like that. I apologized for not remembering him and just started catching up. He was being nice enough and I was bored, so whatever, no harm no foul. After we kept talking, I started remembering more about him. Like I remembered him coming over and swinging in my backyard and me going over to his house with my big brother and all of us hanging out together. Dan was a few years older than me, at least 2, but I can't remember exactly. Anyways, we kept talking on Facebook, just messaging back and forth about normal things until it started to get late and I was tired and had school the next day, so I told him I was going to bed. I closed my computer and just laid down and went to sleep. The next morning I woke up to a bunch of messages from him. Things like "Good night, beautiful, sweet dreams, message me when you wake up, are you asleep yet? Can't wait to talk to you." Literally there was almost 50 messages. In a way I was kind of flattered that I was getting that much attention. But like more than anything I was creeped out. I opened the messages, kind of glanced through them and just didn't reply. On my phone I have it set where I don't get notifications from Facebook Messenger. At the time I was in a lot of group chats with different team sports and groups of friends, so it was just easier to at the end of the day check my messages versus getting a ton of notifications all day long. Some point during the day I had gotten more messages from him that I just hadn't noticed. While I was at school he was saying stuff like, "Do you still live at insert address here? I did still live there. Does your mom still freak out about you hanging with boys? What? No, my mom never has freaked out over boys. Let's go out and catch up. Let me take you out and treat you right." It just kept going on and on, really random questions that weren't necessarily threatening but just somewhat creepy, and then him talking about wanting to go on dates. He didn't even live in the same state anymore that I live in, so I have no idea how he would have planned on going on dates with me. The messages just kept continuing over the next week, him telling me that he wants to go on dates and asking me really weird questions about my mom, my brother and my house, and then he started asking about his house that he used to live in. I didn't reply to any of his messages, but I was getting at least 50 a day. I'm not sure why I didn't block him. I think I was kind of entertained in a way, like I thought it was funny. Eventually I brought it up to my mom and just asked her if she remembered Dan from next door. Her face completely drained of color and she got super serious. All of a sudden she asked me why I was bringing him up. I told her that he had messaged me on Facebook and was trying to get me to go out on a date with him and was just trying to catch up. I didn't tell her he'd been messaging me 50+ times a day and that I wasn't responding at this point. She told me to block him and never message him again. I asked her why, and this is a summary of what she told me. When I was 3 to 4 I used to play over at his house a lot. His mom would always offer to babysit me if my mom had to quick go out and run errands, and he also had a little sister who was around my age, so my mom figured it was a perfect opportunity for a play date between Dan, my brother, me and Dan's little sister. One day when I came home after one of these play dates, my mom is asking me and my brother what we had done that day. My brother started talking about how he had watched some movie, I'd got one. And I apparently told my mom that Dan had brushed my hair for me. My mom thought that was a little weird. What 6-year-old boy's gonna want to brush a 3-year-old girl's hair? So she asked a couple more questions. She doesn't really remember the details and I don't really remember them either, saying I was a toddler, but somehow it came out that he wasn't brushing my hair. He had been taking a brush and was rubbing it all over my body while I was only in my undies. I'm not gonna get more explicit than that, and no, nothing more serious happened, thank God. It was more just weird than anything. My brother didn't know anything about this because we had been in Dan's room and my brother had been in the living room with Dan's little sister. After that my mom didn't let me go back over to his house. Apparently when my mom confronted his mom about it, a huge fight broke out, not physically but a screaming match. It turns out that Dan had been doing similar stuff to his little sister, but it had escalated farther than it had with me. My mom threatened to report them to the police or Child Protective Services. She did both, but before much could be done they moved out and found somewhere else to live. They were renting the house. After hearing that from my mom I immediately blocked Dan on Facebook. I wasn't quick enough, I guess, however, because he messaged a bunch of my friends on Facebook asking about me and had changed his relationship status to taken and in a relationship with me. He then followed me on Instagram and found my Snapchat somehow. He liked and commented on almost all of my Instagram pictures and sent me a bunch of Snapchats. I have a feeling you can guess the kinds of pictures. I quickly blocked him on both and luckily he never figured out my phone number. I haven't heard from him since and haven't heard anything about him but Dan. Let's not meet again.
The fact that the other mom sounds like she was either in denial or just didn't care about how her daughter was being abused makes me so sad. I hope she's not super traumatized now.